Hey, what's going on, guys? Dream Gaming here, back to the video. This episode, we're taking a quick look at how to play Vlad in the mid lane. This is going to be a beginner's guide. People who never really played Vlad before. If you're a seasoned veteran at League, you probably know everything that's already going to be in this guide. So, again, this is going to be for people who are brand new to League and have no clue what this champion does at all. So, that being said, let's go ahead and talk about kind of like the role of Vlad. So, Vlad is a battle mage, and your role in the game is... it could be two different things. Typically, he's played as an assassin, but you can also kind of play as a peel as well. You can kind of peel for your carries if you have certain items, but 99% of the time, you're looking to kind of dive as an assassin on Vladimir. Now, like we said, you're a battle mage, so you can also sustain, and you can also split push very well. And he's also a very good duelist. So let's go ahead and talk about some of his abilities, and we can kind of talk about that stuff here in a bit. Let's go ahead and talk about Crimson Pact first. So Vlad gains 1 AP for every 30 bonus health. He also gains max health per ability power. So it's kind of this yin and yang effect that goes on here. As you get health, you get AP. As you get AP, you get health. So this is one of the things that makes Vlad scale so well. And, you know, just as you get each item, especially as you complete an item, that is going to be like a bigger power spike on Vlad than it would be on other champions due to how, you know, just the nature of his passive. So that's how that works. And we also have his Q transfusion. So Vlad will drain life force from a target. He'll deal magic damage to them, and he will get move speed. So when we go up and we Q this target, you can see we got a little bit of move speed. And the reason that we got move speed is because that was an empowered Q. So if we look at that first paragraph again, after using this ability twice, Vlad gains 40% move speed. So the first Q, you don't get any move speed, but you'll notice this white bar went up. And the reason it went up so fast is because I have auto refresh cooldowns on. So that was a basic Q. Nothing special happened, but when I Q again, that bar fills up even more and it goes red. And when it hits red, it will start to go down. So when that goes down in that window, as that red bar is going down, you have something called an empowered Q. Let's look at that again. So let's look at our Q damage right here. It is 615. Now let's look at our empowered Q here. 999. And we got movement speed bonus. So the idea behind Vladimir is to play around those empowered Qs, and that's kind of your big, almost like damage burst window. Now, the enemy player can see this as well. So, you know, as you get this powered up, you know, they may start to kind of back off because they don't want to take that empowered Q. Your Q also heals you, and it will heal 4 more when your Q is empowered as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. But that's kind of how Vladimir works, is you don't have mana, you're a mana-less champion, but at the same time, your spells cost health instead, and you have to kind of sustain how much you're spending spells and keeping your health pool up. So a good example of this, we haven't talked about these spells yet, but our E and our W both cost mana, so I can EW, and you can see right there, it used a large percentage of my health, probably 10 to 15%. So if I do that again, you can see just using 4 abilities, I'm at half health now. So you have to be very careful, and you have to sustain that health with your Q. So let's talk about his Sanguine Pool. So Sanguine Pool is going to be your W ability and costs 15% of current health. So you can never kill yourself with your own abilities because it's based on your current health. So as you get lower and lower in health, your abilities cost less and less health to cast, but you're closer to dying. So there's that kind of trade-off there. Another thing with this W is you do gain movement speed as well for 1 second. So when I press that, you kind of see that I am moving technically a little bit faster there. And you also become untargetable and ghosted. And anybody in your pool, you actually slow. So a lot of times, well, we're not going to talk about this quite yet, but a lot of times people use his W to actually engage so they can get past the front line. A lot of people use it more defensively as well, just depending on the scenario. And, you know, you can kind of use your W to buy you a couple seconds to get your Q back to get a big heal. So there's a lot of different like combos you can do with Vlad, but that's how his Sanguine Pool works. You also have his E, Tides of Blood, and this is a channel. And as it channels up, so this bar fills up, and then you do a big AoE explosion around you. This costs health as well. This will slow you by a little bit as well, so be careful with that. And the more that you charge it, the more damage that it does. And this will also apply a slow. So W and your E will slow the target. Let's also talk about his ultimate Hemoplague. So Vladimir creates a plague, causing his victims to take 10% increased damage from all sources. So it's a really good team fight ultimate. And after it expires, Vlad deals magic damage to all infected targets. So it's not based on how much damage that you do to the target in a given amount of time. When I press R on this guy and I run away, it's going to do a set amount of damage no matter what. So it did 1,000 damage there. But you typically want to engage with your ultimate, right? Because you get that 10% increased damage for 4 seconds. So you can kind of ult and then go in and do your full combo. And everything's just going to do more damage, essentially. This also heals you as well, which is another reason that it's really good to engage with this, because you can ult, go in, you can lose some health in a team fight, and then you can Q, and then you can also get healing from your ultimate, and you can go from like half health to full health, like mid-team fight, essentially. So that's his basic abilities, kind of how they work. Let's kind of talk about like laning and some of his combos. So in lane, levels 1 through, like, honestly, until you get your ultimate, you're a pretty weak champion. Even once you get your ultimate, in my opinion, you're still a pretty weak champion. Vlad really doesn't come online, in my opinion, until you max out your Q. That's kind of like your huge power spike, is getting that Q maxed. But in lane, you can be pokey. You're pretty good against melee champions. You do have to be careful, though, with like bursty melee, like something like a Riven can be very hard, something that you can't really escape from, especially if you're playing like a Vlad top lane. So just kind of be careful with that. He's also very weak to like poke heavy mages. And where Vlad really excels, in my opinion, is against like assassins, people who like a Fizz or an Akali or somebody who tries to all in you, because you have your pull. And let's say Fizz throws his fish at you, you can just literally press pull and dodge it. Say an Akali tries to turret dive you, you can just press your pull and she's going to be in a bad spot for a couple seconds. So he kind of fits this weird role of like being an assassin himself and also countering assassins, if that makes sense. So in lane, what you're looking to do is you're looking to really just like poke with your Q for the most part, and you're looking to sustain, right? Yeah, it's going to be hard because once your Q's on cooldown, the enemy's going to say, hey, yeah, he can see the literal cooldown of your Q by watching this bar. So if I Q this, now he knows that he can attack me for about 4 or 5 seconds. Probably not, like 2 or 3 seconds. He can go in, do damage, and there's nothing I can really do besides pull. And if I pull, I lose health. So it's kind of tricky to play around his health bar. But overall, you're looking to Q and just sustain and just try to live until you can get your Q max. Now, one of the things you can do if you're playing mid is you can... I don't always recommend this, but you can use a ward on raptors here. And if there's nothing to Q, like say the wave is pushed for whatever reason and you're low on health, you can Q these raptors and you can run away. They're going to chase you. And as they get closer to you, well, I didn't do it right there, but you can Q them a second time as they get close to you. So I'll show you here. So we can Q this guy. Why is it not aggroing? Okay. And then as they run close to you, we can Q again, and we just continue to kite it back. So like a typical trade in lane would just be something like an EQW to run away, right? So the reason that that's a pretty decent trade is because your E will cost health, but you can kind of sustain back up with your Q. So whatever your E costs, you heal it back up with your Q, and then you just W away so that you don't take any damage, any additional damage from them, right? Another decent trade is like if the wave is blocking your E, one of the things you do is you can EW and get past the wave and then Q. That's a little bit more aggressive because you're Wing into the enemy past their minion wave. That's, just be careful with that one. But EW Q is a very popular combo, especially in the late game. People use it all the time because you're getting a bonus movement speed and you're slowing the enemy with your W. So just kind of keep that in mind. We've not really talked about items yet, but we're also running our rocket belt. And this is typically used as an engage, especially in lane. Basically what we just showed you, you just rocket belt in front of it. So you can do something like rocket belt EW. And that's going to allow you, it's basically going to give you a way to close the gap, essentially. That wasn't super clean. Let me show you again. We'll just Rocket Belt EW. That's normally a pretty good engage right there. If you want to look at the full engage combo, it'd just be Rocket Belt Ult EW into a Q. You'd also do something like a Rocket Belt Ult E Q, and then you could save your W defensively. Another thing that a lot of people like to do is they like to start their engagement when they have one stack of your empowered Q down here, because that way you can go ahead, you can go in, you can actually engage, and then by the time your engage has started, your next Q is empowered. So it looks something like Rocket Belt Ult E W and then Q, and now that empowered Q is ticking. So now you get, you know, that big bonus health coming back to you. Another thing that we can do as well is we can slow down the window that our empowered Q. We can lengthen the window of our empowered Q with our E. So as this bar starts to go down, we can E here, and notice how our red bar has pretty much stopped. So a lot of the times you can kind of bait people with that, because people are looking at your red bar, right, to see when you have that empowered Q. And right when it gets like a third of the way through, you don't want to get too low because it doesn't actually hold it. It just slows it slows the rate that bar decreases. So what you can do is hold it at about a third of the way, press your E, and people will think, oh, he doesn't have an empowered Q, but in reality you do. The bar is just really small and it's hard to see. So to show what that looks like, as our E goes down here, I can hold with our E and then Q. I didn't do a good job there. You have to get the timing right on it, but somewhere below half is a good spot. Okay, let's just quickly take a look at the build that Vlad will be running. So we'll be going Phase Rush. You see this a lot on Battle Mages. Really strong because it allows you to go into a big burst of damage and either commit to that or disengage. This also gives us slow resistance as well, which is really nice. We have a Nimbus Cloak. It's going to allow us to pass through units, which is good on Vlad. After casting a Summoner spell, you also get a more movement speed based on Summoner spell's cooldown. It looks like a game ended. we ran out of time. So yeah, Nimbus Cloak, we're running Transcendence for ability haste. You know, we're going to get our spells off cooldown as quickly as we can. And then a Gathering Storm. You can also run Scorch as well if you want a little bit more poke and lane, but I recommend just sticking with Gathering Storm. We're running Flash and Ghost. That's the most important thing on Vlad, is your mobility and being able to either get backline or escape. We're going a Legend Haste. Again, we want more haste stacks to get our abilities off cooldown. And then a Last Stand, which makes sense on Vlad because you're casting spells where you're always going to be kind of low on health, essentially. And this is just going to make you do more damage the lower health that you have. We'll be taking Ability Haste, Adaptive Force, and Health Scaling. Your max order is going to be QEW. Take ult whenever available. And then we're also going Rocket Belt, Boots of Lucidity for that haste that we talked about, and then Riftmaker. It's going to give us that stacking effect. And also has Void Infusion, gain 2% of your health as AP. So this just like plays perfectly into our passive. Gives us everything we want. AP, health, ability haste, and great passive. We'll also be running a Death Cap, Zanya's, and a Void Staff. Alright guys, that's been into this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. See you guys in the next one.